And it is still iBrand Daybreak. I promised you we will be delving into the main topic of discussion for this morning. And Nigerians in Sudan have been in the news for a lot of reasons, obvious reasons. And the armed conflict in that country is taking a toll on Nigerians studying in tertiary institutions in the war-ravaged country. Stranded students yesterday narrated their ordeal as fighting intensifies in Khartoum, the Sudanese capital. While some were forced to remain indoors, almost being cut off from food and medical supplies, some have fled the capital but are stranded at the borders. Many others are staying indoors, mostly in fear, as directed by the Nigerian embassy to await information on the evacuation. Over 420 people have died in the war so far, according to the World Health Organization. Janet Olisa, Director overseeing the Office of the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, gave the advice in a statement on Tuesday. She urged parents to advise their children in Sudan to remain calm and maintain constant communication with officials of the Nigerian embassy in Sudan for instructions and updates, adding that efforts are being made to evacuate them. And joining us this morning in the studio to have that conversation is Mr. Lucky Paul. Good morning.
Morning. It's nice being here this morning.
It's nice to have you. Let's talk about Nigerians in Sudan. First of all, we were all, pensive. We weren't hearing anything from the government, and other countries were evacuating their people. And all of a sudden, we're hearing that, Alan Onyama of Air Peace Nigeria has, volunteered to airlift Nigerians from this country. But then this morning, news reaching us is that Nigerian government has hired 40 buses, paying 150 million naira to an anonymous transport company to, evacuate Nigerians and move them from Sudan to Cairo, Egypt. But then we're also hearing that there has been a delay this morning. All these back and forth. Why does it always have to be Nigerians last and Nigerians getting the poorest treatment?
Really, let's look at all this. If this is the first time we're having this, it isn't the first time we're having this kind of situation. The Russia-Ukraine war, we saw what happened to Nigerian students crying. They were crying out of pain. They were doing video calls from their rooms and all that. And immediately after that, we saw how some other Nigerians were even saying that they want to go and help out and all these things. It's not the first time, and I bet you it's not going to be the last time that we're going to be having such situations in this country. But just to put in the record that the federal government need to be proactive. Now, leaving what is even happening right now in Sudan, if you come to Nigeria, even our country where we are staying, where we are living, you see all this reactiveness to issue. We are not being proactive when the need is there for us to do. As security agents, you see the police saying we're on top of the situation. When people have been killed, they are doing investigation. Don't you have intelligence gathering department? What are they doing? And all these things. It's snowballed into what I will call not putting the right pegs in the right holes. These are the outcome of what you see. Let's go to Sudan. The war didn't just start today. Now, evacuations have been done by different countries. America has gone there. Egypt, a neighboring country, had gone there. Everybody is going there to lift their citizens from that particular country. But we will see Nigerians crying, wailing. It's after weeks of wailing that you now see government now trying to, it's as if you are muscling government to do what government necessarily is supposed to do. The constitution stated it clearly that the purpose of government is for the security and welfare of the people. It's not to amass wealth for oneself. It's not to galvanize power. It's not to muscle the people to a tight corner. We are talking about subsidy removal. Before you know it, subsidy will be removed. Before you know it, Nigerians are on the queue. Before you know it, Nigerians are struggling for virtually almost everything. Government is not doing anything for Nigerians. I met a man and he said, it is only in this part of the world that you do everything for yourself. For instance, you buy a plot of land for yourself, right? You create road to where you want to build your house. You will build a house yourself, no mortgage, right? Then you will sink a borehole to get water for yourself, right? Then you will employ security to come and guide you. Then your children will go to schools that you will pay for. You will transport yourself. Medical bills you will pay for yourself. He said, but at the end of the day, government will come and collect taxes from you.
But
it is an aberration.
But don't you think you missed out something? You didn't even put the drainage system.
Yes, you will create everything for yourself. You generate power for yourself. Everything you do for yourself. What are we getting from government? We should begin to ask these people questions. Now, Nigerian citizens, they didn't just leave their own country and went to Sudan. Perhaps all of the ASU strike contributed to it. And they decided that we cannot just stay fallow like this. We needed education for ourselves. And perhaps we don't have money to go to the Americas and the Europe and all that. They decided to, okay, let's try a small Africa country that is very close to us so that we can muscle it, we can try as much as possible to foot the bills our parents will pay and all that. But this is the situation they find themselves again in another man's country. Now, this is not the first time that we have all this. You remember the Libya issue? Up till now, Nigerians are still begging to leave Libya back to their country. Today, government, in fact, government is doing it in batches. And it's not just that government alone is doing it. The United Nations is also sponsoring. Some governors, I will not mention names, they took it at the time as an office for themselves. They will collect money that is meant as palliative for these people returning back. Then they will say they want to give them skill acquisition. They will train them on fish farming, this and that. Then they will give them startup of amounting to nothing. These people will return back to the streets. Do you get all these things?
But is there no constitutional provision for, you know, situations like this? Because we see it happening all the time. It's almost as if for every time there is a situation like this, Nigerians are taken by surprise, or should I say the Nigerian government is taken by surprise, and it's, you know, they need to start making fresh provisions for it. Whereas I want to believe that there's probably a constitutional provision for, you know, when a Nigerian is maltreated abroad, mistreated abroad, or is in danger abroad, there should be, you know, outlined guidelines to how to, you know, handle these issues, you know, across international borders, and help, you know, while staying at peace with the country you're going into, and also helping your people.
Now, that is in the ideal situation. For instance, there are international laws guiding countries coexisting together, right, in the ideal situation. But this is a war situation. Now, in a war situation, some laws are relaxed. For instance, there will be curfew. Now, you don't move the way you want to move, right? You are restricted to some areas, right? Now, all these laws that you're talking about, they no longer apply, especially in a situation like this, where the war is a war within a country. It is not a war between two countries. It's a war within a country. Now, some of these rules are not being exercised. Now, let's really look at the issue. Like you said, constitutional provision. I've said it here, that the Constitution clearly stated it, that the singular purpose of governance, the reason why you have government, it is because of the people, especially in a democratic setting, is for the people, the welfare, the security of the people, the well-being of the people. And who are these people? They are the people who voted government into power, those who are in power, in office of authority, the people who voted them into power. They are the same people they were supposed to cater for, care for, protect them. And these are the people begging for evacuation.
Now, can I ask you a question, Paul? Because when you talked about the essence of governance is for the sake of protecting lives and property. For instance, lives are involved. And given the statistics we saw, the majority of these persons in Sudan are from the north. Right?
Of course.
Now, we saw some months back where certain governors from the north moved to Aso Rock to mount pressure on the president before the election that this Naira policy of it did should be stopped because it was something that they had interest in. Because if you don't have interest in these things, they will not make any move. They claimed they were fighting for the masses. Now, can these governors not stand up to fight for their own people who are from the north? To now say the very government should make earnest effort to evacuate these persons out. Why did they have to wait until this time?
Seriously, Josh, I would not want us to politicize this issue or take it to ethnic background, or let's not shift it to making it personal or regionalizing it. Now, I want to quickly use this opportunity to appreciate our own brother. Our brother not because he's from a particular region, our brother because he's a Nigerian and is a proud Nigerian. The chief executive of Peace, Onyema himself, Dr. Onyema. Now, you see what he's doing. He did the same thing.
The xenophobic attack.
Yes, he did the same thing, lifting Nigerians from Libya. Now, he's not doing it because he wants to gain popularity. He's not doing it because the people that he's bringing back, possibly they own a share in the air peace. He's doing it because this is how we used to be.
Yeah.
This is how we used to be. Before politicians came and they brought divide and rule policy to us. And they started making us feel that you are from this region, you cannot be this. You are from that region, you cannot be this. While I was growing up as a small boy, right, growing up, my father, during this Christmas festive period, right, my father used to, would do party, mini party, we call it street party. My father would sponsor, and you have children from the other religion coming to eat with us. We eat together, we play together, we do everything together. It is said that the child of one man is the child of other men in the community. That was how we grew up. Do you get it? Now, it is not from governors in the northern part of the country, because more of these people that are trapped in Sudan are from the north. Right? It is not enough to say that governors from the northern part of the country should start crying out. It is for Nigerians to start asking, if this is the last thing that we're going to be asking President Muhammadu Buhari, it is for Nigerians to be asking him that, sir, we voted you into power to protect Nigerians. Now Nigerians are stranded. Should anything happen to one Nigerian in Sudan, you are going to explain to Nigerians why this happened. Because we cannot sit down here and have our brothers and sisters, wherever they are from in this country, they are brothers, they are sisters, and we should protect their interest. We should protect them from anything that will hurt them. Now look at the evacuation process. Most of the countries that have gone to evacuate their citizens, they've been doing it since last week. Now they do a transportation to neighboring countries because, of course, in a war situation, you will not expect airlifting from that particular country at this period, because it will be very dangerous. Anything can happen, right? Because in situations like, especially when you have government troop fighting against rebel and rebel fighting against government troop, you cannot tell where the heat will come from. So in order to do all those protection, I think that is why the government is quickly moving into action right now. But I think this is coming late. We would have done all this probably before this time. and by now our brothers and sisters would have been at home with us, enjoying themselves. But this is a lesson for us in this country. Now, the Rwanda issue had not taught some African countries lessons. Possibly we'll begin to learn from the case of Sudan. My brother, it is better to jojo than to war. What they have started in Sudan, they only knew how they started it, but how they are going to end it, they don't know. Peace is better than war. Peace is better than war. This is why we want to call on our politicians that they should stop overheating the polity in this country. We value our country. This is our country, and we have no other country that we can run to. Now everybody is going to Sudan to lift their citizens from Sudan. When that is done, what do you think will happen next? There's a ceasefire period of 72 hours or 74 hours. Now after this ceasefire period, it means there is now a full-blown conflict. The highest that the foreign nations can do for you is for peacekeeping. You're killing yourselves. You're killing your brothers and your sisters. You are damaging your economy. Your infrastructure is going down, which will take you years to build. Look at what happened in Rwanda. The Hutus and the Tutsis. They killed themselves. Bloodletting on the streets. You know, if the Westerners don't have anything to profit from a particular region, they will leave their citizens and leave you alone to kill yourself. It is you. And I want to tell African leaders that it is high time that we put the people first before our interests. You cannot be fighting for power. You cannot be ruling. You cannot fight to gain power and rule nobody. If you kill the people, at the time you finally gain power, whom are you going to be lording it over? Animals?
Now,
plants?
my question to you is, I think in the international relations, there's this law that allows, excuse me, Nigerians to be able to move within the African countries, within the African
ECOWAS region.
Yes. Why is it that most of us, our citizens, you know, are not allowed to move freely except when they obtain visas?
Now, there are countries that have visa on arrival countries, right? There are countries that you obtain visas to go. That's how the policy of those countries runs. At a time, somebody was telling me that, do you know that it is even more strenuous and more difficult to get a Nigerian visa, like a foreigner coming to Nigeria, than we getting a visa to possibly UK and all that. And the person was asking me, said, why are we putting all these policies in place that is restraining people from coming? What is in Nigeria that? I say, yes, there's something in Nigeria that a person is coming to look for. We have gold, we have oil, we have everything, all the raw materials that you see that, for instance, we are exporting our crude. It is not just petrol, it is not just kerosene, it is not just diesel that's there. There are other raw materials that are there. Do you get it? Now, if you don't want something from a country, you will not go there. Of course, these are policies, international relations policies put in place by different countries. But for ECOWAS countries, of course, you have the right to, with your ECOWAS passport, to go around the country freely. It's assumed that you're also a member country and you have all those freedom and rights, right? But it is also restricted.
In what sense?
It is also restricted in terms of some things that you might want to do. You cannot say because you have an ECOWAS passport and is a region that you want to go and contest for a particular position in that particular country, or if you want to seek residence in a country, you also have to do some documentations and all that to get you properly channeled into the country's policies and all that. It's really international relations issues.
But don't you think? But I quite understand what you're trying to say. But what I'm saying is this: in a war situation, don't you think they need to put humanity first before all of that? Because we know if it were on a normal situation, yes, they will allow you. You go through the process, even if you don't have to obtain visas, but you need to do the proper documentations. But in a situation where people are taking refuge in a country, in a war situation, don't you think they need to waive certain situations of that nature just so that people can take refuge? I mean, it is, as people say, it's when you have life that you can do other things.
Yes, of course.
Sorry,
that is why you have the ceasefire,
just
period.
before you respond to that, you know, driving home, you know, better what Josh is trying to say. It was Ethiopia that refused Nigerians to pass through their borders, and it baffles me. Why? Because the head office of African Union is in Addis Ababa, and African Union has been trying to sell this idea of borderless Africa to the rest of Africa, the rest of African countries. And you know, this borderless Africa entails a lot of things, you know, free movement, free trade zone, even down to the exchange of internet connections and a lot of things. So when we get to a situation like this, where a country like Nigerian citizens, Nigerians and a country like Nigeria and their citizens are trying to pass through your borders, as a country housing African Union, and you took it upon yourself to choose that time, this particular time of unrest, to be selfish, you know, to choose yourself over people that you've been trying to convince for almost over 100 years, you know, to adopt this policy
which
of
I'm even
borderless Africa.
Which I'm even sure, if it were to be in our own shoes, we would not do all of that for them.
Exactly.
Nigeria is the big brother of Africa. Nigeria, that's why you see everywhere it is that you have some of these conflicts, you see the Nigerian soldiers on the ground trying to see as much as they can do to forestall peace in that particular country. All of these things that are being done today is not as if it's not good for Africa, but we are still developing, we are still growing. Now, at a time we're talking about having a common currency for Africa and all this. You remember recently we have Ghanaians chasing Nigerians out of Ghana, you know, over nothing. You get it. We have the South Africa issue. We have, this is why we are calling on African leaders that the time has come for us to put our house together. What we are looking for in America, it is here in Africa. If only we can put our house together. Now, I see no reason why, in fact, all the neighboring countries to Sudan at this time would have opened their borders, right, for proper security check, allowing citizens from other countries to come in for safety. It is not ideal for you to close your border at this time. We understand that also you have security implications to some of all these things. That is why we have the ECOWAS member countries. We have the Africa, there's what they call it, soldiers put together within African region to fight conflict within Africa.
Main troops?
Yes. Now, you employ all this with the UN coming in place to check people into some of these neighboring countries to ensure that the citizens, the common people, don't get hurt. Now, in one situation, no matter how it is, there are facilities that you don't attack. There are areas that you don't go to. For instance, schools, hospitals, residential areas. You don't do it because whether you like it or not, the war will come to an end. And at the end of the war, some persons will be persecuted. You remember the issue of Paul, Rwanda, Paul Rusesabagina. Now, just recently, he was released and pardoned after the Rwanda war. So, People should know that there are consequences for whatever they do. There are consequences. Just recently, our president was saying that whatever he has done that has offended some Nigerians, and Nigerians will forgive him because, of course, he's leaving office very soon.
You know, I would really want for us to have a full-blown conversation on that.
On the issue.
Yes, but that's just for another day. Let's concentrate on today's
You,
topic.
you see it, because this is what African leaders should know. That you are in that office today does not mean that you're going to remain there forever. Trump is facing his own in the US. But the white man understands that it's ephemeral, right? It's not going to last forever. But the black man does not have this mentality. He's in power. He wants to do everything. You see people sending security agents to people's houses. They'll come through the roof and all of... For crying out loud, why are we doing this to ourselves? Why are we doing this to ourselves? When we want to arm ourselves, we are proactive. When it's time for us to secure ourselves, we are reactionary.
Now, what do you think can be done as regards forestalling such kind of situations of this nature from happening in the future, in order not to create this kind of national embarrassment where citizens are stranded? Because whether or not you like it, Nigerians deserve the right to travel to any part of the world for any reason.
Of course.
So when it happens, we should be able to be seen taking proactive steps in order not to allow our citizens to be stranded. So what do you think needs to be done, in these areas?
Now, going forward, I think this is one of the first tests that the incoming president, the president-elect, the person of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, should take while coming into office. Because this is happening almost twin lights of the end of the current administration. And he's in the country, he's seeing what is going on, and I think all this should not happen again. If we say we want to develop, if we say we want to do what is purposeful, if we say we want to do those things that will change the mentality of the international communities towards Nigeria. Nigeria is a well-respected country in the League of Nations before now. But over time, you just see people embarrassing Nigerians all over the world. You hold your Nigerian passport and people look down on it. It is because of the way we treat ourselves. Now, if we respect ourselves, other people will respect us. And I want to challenge the incoming administration that never again should we see situations like this. Never again should we see Nigerians trapped in other nations when there is conflict or when there are issues.
But these are issues stemming off from this current administration. You're hoping the incoming administration wouldn't do that. But how do you do you believe that, or how do you trust that they won't do that when they've actually out there said openly that they're going to be building on the legacies of the last administration?
Now, I don't want to hold brief for this administration. I'm not a spokesperson. I don't want to hold brief for this administration. But truth to it is that no government has failed totally. Right? Now, the man would have contributed to the development of the country in certain areas. He may have failed in other areas. But you cannot say totally that this administration has failed. No, you can't do that. It means that you are not a good critic. Having said that, the current administration, definitely they are going to evacuate Nigerians from Sudan. That I'm sure of. Because, of course, they have voted money and the CBN had paid money to a transport company, which, of course, they said they don't want to disclose the particular company they paid the money to get Nigerians to a neighboring country before to be lifted back to their father's land. But what I am saying is that the incoming administration, so as a matter of urgency, as a matter of urgent public importance, put infrastructures in place, being proactive, that should anything like this happen again in less than 24 hours, Nigerians in those countries would have been at home. And also, as a matter of public urgent importance, also put infrastructures in place to start seeking how to bring back Nigerians that are stranded all over the world back home. Not just bringing them back home, bringing them back home and putting them in a place where they can be rehabilitated. Because all this has psychological effects and impact. A man that has experienced war, even for 5 days, you don't just bring the man into the country like that. You need to reevaluate the man. You need to talk to him. For instance, George, you may not have seen a man killed before. You may not have seen life sniffed out of a man before. You are just saying it. Broad daylight. It will affect your psyche. Right? You needed a psychologist to talk to you out of it.
All
So
right.
we should start, the incoming administration should start thinking of things like this. These are things that affect the common man.
All right. Thank you so much, Lucky Paul, for coming on the show this morning. We'd really have loved to, continue having this conversation, but we're short of time and we have other things to talk about on the show. But it was amazing having this conversation with you, by the way. Thank you for dropping by.
You're welcome.
All right, it is still iBrand Daybreak. It is time to spice things up. All the people that like gist, a lot has been buzzing on social media. But before we get to social media buzz, you know that you need money. And to keep money, you need to be able to handle and plan for money. And that is what we're going to be talking about today on personal finance. You do not want to miss out on that. Stay with us. We will return after this break.